With summer approaching, you may be considering taking your dog to the local farmer's market. Whether for fun and functionality or for training your dog, you have to take a couple of things into consideration to decide if it's going to be a good fit for you or not. Because for some dogs, you might be absolutely okay doing that. And for other dogs, it should be something that you absolutely avoid. So let's talk about some of those points. Keep in mind that farmers markets are very high stress environments. They are very crowded. There's a lot of people. And if your dog is walking, that very much runs the risk of them being stepped on, being petted, being touched, having a lot of people running up to them. So it is a very high volume, high capacity people environment. You have to take into consideration your dog's personality, their training level, all of those things. You do not want them to be stressed out over this. You do not want them to be constantly being touched or talked to or petted or all of those things. So think that through before you go to a farmer's market. And not all farmer markets are created equal. Some are very tightly packed in with people. Some have a little bit more space. So you have to be mindful and maybe do research. A lot of these farmers markets are not a one-time thing. It happens every weekend, and you can go and check it out before bringing your dog to see if it's going to be a good fit. And keep in mind that you need to keep your dog's safety your priority here. I know you're going to do shopping and to do things and to see people and all the stuff, but your dog's safety has to be priority. So if you are taking your dog and you get there and stuff is going on, you have to be okay keeping your dog in the car and not turning around and going back to where you are. So think it through before you take your dog into this very crowded, very high stressed area. It's also important to point out that if your dog is going to be walking around a farmer's market, it can be very easy for them to snatch things off of different booths. A lot of people will have baskets of food or soap or stuff that they are selling that's going to be lower to the ground because these people have a booth or a space with very limited capacities. You cannot stretch out long, you cannot stretch out back, so you have to go up. You have to vertically use all of that space, and that means higher space and lower space. There's very likely going to be things on the ground. There will also very likely be things around that people drop. And some things can be toxic to your dog. So not only can they potentially steal, but they can also potentially be eating things they shouldn't be eating, especially if there's foods around. A lot of human foods can be toxic to dogs. And so you have to be hyper aware of everything your dog can get into, even if they're incredibly well trained. Some things are just really tempting. Some accidents happen. Some stuff goes on. So being mindful of what they could potentially snatch or run into, not just like potential theft over here, but we're talking about your dog could be walking by something and you have to step over because somebody's coming and they could poke their eye out on something that's lower to the ground. You have to be very, very aware of those things as you are going into it and keep your dog a safer distance from some of those things, which sometimes means you have to walk in the middle or to the outside. You can't be super close to the booth that you might need to or want to buy something from. So taking that into consideration is also incredibly important. And something that I learned the last time I took my dogs to a farmer's market, which is a story I'll get to in just a second, is that you're only going to make it a couple of feet before somebody stops you. They will want to talk about your dog. They will want to pet your dog. They will want to talk to your dog. Some people will have the good grace to ask your permission first, but a lot of people won't. A lot of people will just do what they want. I have had people, not in a farmer's market setting, but on the beach, chase my dogs down to pet them when they were actively trying to escape them. I had to put myself physically between them and yell at somebody to get away from them to keep my dog safe. You will have a lot of very enthusiastic adults, teens, children, little children who don't know better, who will actively try to touch your dog or to talk to you or to talk to your dog. It is going to be a very long process. So if you take your dog to a farmer's market and you plan on just buzzing through, that's not an option. You will be stopped, and you will be stopped a lot. There will be a lot of conversations. So you should plan on spending a very long period of time at this farmer's market if you have something as cute as a dog with you. And that brings me to my pro tip. I told you I took my dogs to a farmer's market. I did that when they were puppies. I will not be doing that now that they are adult dogs. That's just my personal preference. But when they were puppies, I took them to the farmer's market and I put them inside of a stroller because it was part of their socialization training. I had my stroller, which I talk about the benefits of having a stroller for your senior dogs that can't do full walks and for your puppies who can't be on the ground because they haven't had all their vaccinations yet. And I had them in their strollers. And I had all three of my dogs. I had a little dog and two puppies inside of that stroller. We were walking around and it was fantastically helpful because nobody could step on them. They could not get into trouble. They had lots of great socialization. People talked to them. People stopped them. Some people tried to like poke them through the mesh without my permission, but that's another story. And I was able to navigate my way through it. People move and get out of the way when they see a stroller. And then when they realize it's not a human in the stroller, it's a puppy, that's an entirely different conversation. I got stopped with puppies more than any human parent has ever gotten stopped at a farmer's market. You will get stopped for a dog or a puppy. And so having that stroller to help navigate, to keep them safe, to keep people from being able to touch them, to, make sure they're not snatching things or getting stepped on or any of those problem areas, a stroller is really helpful. Even if you're an older dog, if you have one, that's a kind of a great way to navigate your way through it if it's something you have to do where you can't leave your dog at home. So there's options for this, but you do have to take a lot into consideration if you are going to be taking your dog to a farmer's market. There's a lot of people to see, so it might be great for training at a distance. It might even be good for training, kind of navigating through people depending on your dog's skill levels. But there's also a lot of dangers, a lot of things you have to be aware of. You do have to be hyper on top of your game and watching absolutely everything. You do not get to have a nice fun trip to the farmer's market if you have to parent your dog and make sure their safety and well-being is taken care of. So farmers markets, super fun. Elite, I love them, love going. Will not be taking my full-grown dogs, period. Like, I'm working on their socialization. I'm working on their training now. We're taking to them a lot of different places, a lot of different human places that they can get education and interaction, all of those things. A farmer's market will not be one of them. It is just far too dangerous for me. I don't want to put my dogs in that situation. There's a lot of things I will do. We'll go to the park. We'll go to the park in the summer. There's a lot that I will do. That is not one of them, just because there's so much I have to be aware of. And I just don't want to put my dog in that situation, no matter how good their training is. So it is entirely up to you whether or not you want to do it, whether or not you have a little dog, a big dog. Like, it would be an entirely different situation if I were to take my little dog and just carry her through the farmer's market than to take my English Springer Spaniels and to walk through a farmer's market. So it is entirely up to you, to your dog, to your dog's training level, to your dog's comfort level, and to what you are doing inside of your life, whether or not you're taking them to the farmer's market. But think things through and prioritize their safety before you go and while you are there, because there's a lot of hazards that you have to navigate as dog parent to make sure it is a successful and safe trip to that farmer's market. Drop your questions or comments down below and follow along for more fun and enriching things you can do with your dog and how you can do them safely with your pup as well. We've got a full playlist on traveling, going to the beach, going to hotels, going to different locations and doing different things. So make sure you check that out as well. And let us know where you're traveling and what you're doing this summer so we can help with more tutorials on this. We also bring in really cool experts to help you navigate the world of dog parent life so you can level up for your pup and make sure you're giving them the best life possible with the least amount of stress and overwhelm and time commitment on what you were doing to make sure you're living your best life with your dog and not just focusing on those little things. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.